I was initially very skeptical of 8 Sleep due to their kind of over-the-top marketing and just complete lack of real reviews on the internet. All the reviews that I could find were just influencers who were given the 8 Sleep for free. Despite my initial hesitation, I caved and I bought the Pod 2 because sleeping on a cooled mattress just was too tempting not to at least try. Then after sleeping on it for 8 months, I wanted to buy the Pod 3 because my Pod 2 review was so well received and I wanted to make another video. Now it's been more than a year of sleeping on an 8 Sleep pod, and I've come to the conclusion that despite 8 Sleep's poor marketing judgment, sleeping on a mattress that isn't automatically cooled for me is just something that I dread. However, it's not a no-brainer purchase for everyone due to the high price tag, and I have a lot of longevity concerns. In this video, I'll go over the 4 main reasons why you should probably buy an 8 Sleep, and then 3 reasons why it might not be for you, and then I'll wrap things up with who is this best suited for? And if you're coming from my Pod 2 review and you just want to know the differences between the Pod 2 and the Pod 3, I'll save you some time. The Pod 2 is essentially identical to the Pod 3 with one major exception: the surface level comfort. The temperature controlled zones are the reason most people buy an 8 Sleep pod, and I think it's important even if you already have a temperature controlled room. In the summer, window ACs are loud and can make the air too dry. And by design, the temp of the room is the same for you and your partner. Even a central air system can have some issues as it relates to sleep. And this is where the 8 Sleep comes in. The active grid cover has water pumped throughout the coils to heat or cool the surface. It can heat up to 110 degrees Fahrenheit, which is a plus 10 in the app, or it can get as cold as 55 degrees, which is a minus 10 temperature in the app. 8 Sleep's initial questionnaire asks you how you typically feel when you're in bed. Do you use a ton of blankets? Are you routinely throwing out the covers? Or are you somewhere in between? 8 Sleep uses your answers along with the data from other community members to determine the perfect sleep temperature for each stage of your sleep. Once your bedtime and wake times are set, the pod will automatically heat or cool your bed so it's the correct temperature at bedtime. There's a temperature dial in the app for manual control, but I've hardly touched it since getting my temperature preferences optimized. Before I used 8 Sleep, I'd often find myself taking off the covers sometime throughout the night because I was just getting too hot. Now my ideal cover temperature looks like this. It's about a -4 when I get into bed, and then it goes down to -3 once I'm in deep sleep, and then it gets to -2 once I'm in REM sleep. When sleeping, there's nothing more discouraging to me than when the sheets stick to me, but there's also nothing more satisfying than coming into a nice cool bed at nighttime. Interestingly, my wife has the complete opposite requirements. She's just universally cold. And this is where the 8 Sleep dual zones come in handy because each person gets their own 8 Sleep account and gets full control of their own side. And that's why I think one of the biggest reasons to get an 8 Sleep is if you and your partner have vastly different temperature preferences. Before the 8 Sleep, my wife and I would fight over the temperature all the time. But now the bedroom temperature is mostly an afterthought. We keep the room at a somewhat neutral temperature, and then we just each adjust our own sides of the pod, and we're both satisfied. Her side is usually a +4 in temperature, and then mine stays nice and cool. And I can't directly relate to this, but she claims that the heat helps her lower back pain and cramps during her menstrual cycle. And the one thing that I wasn't really expecting when I bought the pod was that we actually used our AC less. There were exceptions, but on an average New England summer night, we would just keep the AC on for a couple of hours to cool down the room and then set a timer for it to turn off when we fall asleep. And the 8 Sleep was more than enough to keep me cool and satisfied. The benefit to this is that the room was a little bit more quiet and the air was a little bit less dry. The goal is to get as much deep and REM sleep as possible. And ideally, the 8 Sleep cover should help you feel more recovered in the morning without increasing the amount of sleep you get. Instead, the 8 Sleep will help you trade some of your light sleep for deep sleep, and potentially it'll help you fall asleep faster. 8 Sleep has the data that shows that their users have had increased deep sleep and the ability to get to sleep faster. But I really wouldn't lean too heavily on 8 Sleep studies because those are not independent and they're trying to sell you something. So is all of this marketing speak, or is it legit? It's tough to tell because I don't have the proper equipment and there are so many variables, but I ran a bunch of tests. On the Pod 2, I went 30 days with the 8 Sleep enabled and 30 days with the 8 Sleep disabled. According to my Oura Ring, my deep and REM sleep increased by about 5% combined, which works out to an extra 12 minutes of high quality sleep per night. On the Pod 3, I gathered 4 weeks of data using my Apple Watch, but I couldn't see a difference in the data for my deep and REM sleep at all. However, in this round of testing, I did average 5 fewer tosses and turns according to 8 Sleep. And unfortunately, my data is just nowhere near perfect and shouldn't really be trusted any more than 8 Sleep's data. However, my anecdotal experience with 8 Sleep may tell a better story. On both pods, I cut my testing shorter than I originally planned because I was just getting annoyed sleeping without my 8 Sleep. I went on 2 different week-long vacations last year, and for each one of those, there were large chunks of those trips where I just felt hot and uncomfortable while trying to sleep. And before I throw too much 8 Sleep propaganda at you, let me make this clear. I've slept my entire life without an 8 Sleep, mostly just fine, and I'm sure I could get used to sleeping without one again. I just wanted to note this experience because sometimes you forget about how useful a thing is until you're without it, and going on vacations is the greatest reminder that I really do like my 8 Sleep. 8 Sleep tracks your movements, sleep cycles, and time slept. The best part is that you don't have to wear anything on your wrist or on your finger. It just tracks your sleep automatically without doing anything. And to top it off, you can export your sleep data into other fitness apps like Apple Health. Each morning, you're provided with a sleep fitness score based on a 100-point scale. This comes from a combination of time slept, wake up consistency, time to fall asleep, and time to get up. 8 Sleep's data isn't perfect, especially if you end up rolling over to your partner's side. But as long as I stay on my side of the bed, I found that the fall asleep time and the wake up time pretty much perfectly match my Apple Watch and Oura Ring. I'll occasionally see a wake up time that cut a little bit short for some reason, but you can go back in and manually edit that, and then you'll get a better sleep calculation. Pod 3 has more sensors than the Pod 2 for sleep tracking, but I didn't really see any of this play out in real life. If precise deep sleep and REM sleep data are important to you, I would consider a dedicated device. Personally, I try not to overanalyze my sleep because it kind of makes me anxious, but I do like to know how long I slept, and 8 Sleep nails that part. 8 Sleep has a feature called Gentle Rise that vibrates the bed when it's time for you to wake up. You can also add more heat or coolness to your wake up time. My wife thinks the gentle vibration is one of 8 Sleep's best features, but I think I like it even more than her because when her alarm goes off before I'm ready to get up, I don't usually hear it. She can kind of just wake up whenever she wants to without really disturbing my sleep. Compare that to a super loud phone alarm that wakes up everybody in the room. Gentle Rise is just one more feature that shows it's great for couples who have vastly different sleep schedules or sleep preferences. The 8 Sleep Pod 3 cover costs between $2,000 and $2,500 depending on the size of your mattress, but financing is available to lighten the blow. For a queen size cover, it'd be around $60 a month for 3 years with no interest. Despite 8 Sleep's confusing checkout page, it doesn't require a monthly subscription for basic functions. The most important features like manual temperature control, basic sleep tracking, and the vibration alarm are all free features. However, there are 2 optional subscription plans that offer additional features. Because I bought an 8 Sleep before these subscriptions even existed, I was grandfathered in and I get these for free. But if I had the choice, I'd likely skip both of these services. The 8 standard plan is $96 a year and it comes with 3 features. You get scheduled heating and cooling, which lets you pick one temperature for each stage of sleep, meaning that the pod will slightly change throughout the night. But honestly, I think most people will be fine just with one temperature for the whole night once you find out what your preferred temperature is. Heart rate variability and the other heart metrics may be useful to people who want to track their body's recovery. And considering many devices that record HRV data like the Oura Ring or Whoop Strap are expensive, $96 a year doesn't really seem that bad for the 8 Sleep subscription. But it's unclear to me how accurate this data actually is. After an algorithm update, my HRV numbers are nowhere near where they used to be, which raises some concern. The standard plan is probably alright if you value your HRV data, but if you do value that data, I would probably lean towards getting a dedicated device. And it is pretty disappointing that a lot of the features that come with the subscription used to be free and probably should be free. The Pro plan is $180 a year and it comes with all the features we just talked about, plus sleep content like guided breathing and white noise, and data insights. It's funny because the data insights are actually something that I pay 8 Sleep not to see. They're just not actionable. The Pro plan just feels like a complete cash grab and I would avoid that at all costs. I had the 8 Sleep Pod 2 on my mattress for 8 months. It would occasionally get noisy, which initially worried me, but it turns out that this is normal. Every few months, the pod requires a prime of the pump to circulate the water around the coils for 90 minutes, which will remove all the air bubbles that cause the noise. Otherwise, I ran into no issues with my Pod 2 until I went to replace it with my Pod 3. When I took off the Pod 2 cover, I noticed a huge ring from the hydrogen peroxide near the pump connection on the encasement cover. It definitely wasn't a major leak because my sheets were never once wet and the mattress was unstained. But it was concerning, so I reached out to 8 Sleep to let them know, and they sent me a free replacement within a week. So what do I make of this situation? Well, there are two sides to every story. The pessimistic take is that a small yet noticeable number of people on the internet have had a leak with the Pod 2. And if my cover can't even last 8 months without leaking, how is somebody supposed to get 5 years out of their pod without any issues? The customer service was fast acting, but the warranty is only for 2 years. What happens after that? The optimistic take is that this leak was so insignificant that I didn't even notice it, and it likely would have gone unnoticed if I never upgraded to the Pod 3. Plus, it's likely that the Pod 3 addresses any of the leak concerns from the previous generation. And after 5 months of sleeping on the Pod 3, there are no signs of leaks yet, and I can't find a single complaint about the Pod 3 leaking on any of the forums that I check, like Reddit. Either way, 8 Sleep has a longevity concern, and it's something that you need to consider when you're dropping thousands of dollars on something. When I originally reviewed the Pod 2, I said that you'll need to sacrifice a bit of surface comfort because I could feel the coils and the sensors throughout the grid. Plus, the Pod 2 has a strap that would run across my chest that would get tighter as the person on the other side of the bed moves. The good news is that the Pod 3 improves the surface comfort by a solid margin. And surprisingly, 8 Sleep undersells this improvement in comfort, even though it's really the only difference between the two pod generations. If the Pod 2 surface comfort was a 6 out of 10, I'll say that the Pod 3 comfort is an 8.5 out of 10. The giant strap from the Pod 2 that ran across my chest is gone, and the coils and sensors are hardly noticeable because they're masked differently with padding compared to the Pod 2. The padding configuration feels a little bit more like you're floating on top of the coils instead of having direct contact with the coils. But keep in mind, sleeping on an 8 Sleep cover is not like sleeping on a naked mattress. You'll still feel some firmness, so if you like an extra squishy bed, 8 Sleep probably isn't for you. And there's one more negative aspect to the comfort. The temperature zones are great, but if you and your partner have vastly different temperatures, you might not like the temperature that you get when you roll over to that side. Having a boundary line with different temperatures can be a little tricky to get used to, and it's definitely not ideal for those who like to sleep really close to each other. 8 Sleep is great if you're often uncomfortable at nighttime, and even better if you and your partner have vastly different temperature preferences. 8 Sleep is really expensive, but personally, I'm alright spending that money on things that will help optimize my health. I've seen nothing to directly indicate that the Pod 3 won't last, but there are plenty of reasons why you should consider its longevity. For me, it was a risk worth taking, but you'll have to do your own further research and come to your own conclusion. All right, before we end this video, I quickly want to talk about the link in my description. Ironically, the subtitle for my Pod 2 review was not from an influencer, but I kind of turned into an influencer. Let me explain. When I made my Pod 2 review, I had no affiliation with 8 Sleep at all. I just added the universal refer friend link from inside the 8 Sleep app that everyone has access to the description. But eventually somebody from 8 Sleep reached out to me because they had watched my review on YouTube and they wanted me to become a part of their official affiliate program. I was actually kind of reluctant to join because I thought that would kind of ruin the whole spirit of that video. But I told them I would join under 2 conditions. I said that I would never change or tweak any of my content to their liking. I said that I'll never accept any of their free products and I'll just continue to buy what I want to buy and review it when I want to review it. I have just as many biases as everybody else, but I feel like if I'm buying something and I have skin in the game and no content restrictions, I can at least have a little bit of something different to bring to the table than other people. So if you did like this video, there is a link in the description. And if you click on that and use it, you'll get $200 off and I'll get a commission in return. But to be super upfront, there's nothing unique about this $200 off. And you can find it very easily with a quick Google search from somebody else. I won't be offended at all if you don't use it, but I really do appreciate it if you do. So that's all I have for this video. Thanks for watching and I'll see you next week.